Hey friends, it's June 11th. This is the US time slot for the Flux Dev Meeting, and we've got a bunch of us on here today to talk about a few things. Um, Simon was gonna talk about reverse GitOps a little bit. Kingdon mentioned inviting him to do so, so we're looking forward to that. Mateus and I just wrote up a blog series, some concepts and content plan, and a little bit of schedule. I guess we could probably ramble on about anything related to the 2.9 release also coming up at the end of the month, which is approaching quickly enough. And is there anything else that anyone wanted to add to the agenda?
Nothing for me.
Cool. Great. Well, Simon, it's your floor. If you want if you're ready, or I can also move you around, just let me know.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me first see if I can share my screen. That is always a good question. Just want to share this specific window. So, great. Yeah, now you can see yourself, of course. Sorry. Can you still see my screen?
Yeah.
Great. So, reverse GitOps. Basically, in very short terms, it's an API in front of your simple GitOps folder in Git. And thank you very much for inviting me to tell a little bit about this in this meeting. So first, who am I? Very short. Yeah, call it whatever you like, engineer these days. I worked in startups, consultancy, and SaaS, and I actually left my job last summer to pursue building my own company. So what is that then? I work for Dev, doing consultancy, training, Kubernetes, all these kind of things. And I have Config Butler, which is actually the company behind, yeah, GitOps Reverser, as I call it. And it's basically a startup, open source first. And basically, its goal is to help people to build high quality config. And then there's also Reverse GitOps. It's basically a separate website that I created, um, where I just have a manifest and where I try to kind of explain what I mean by this concept that I do. So I will continue with that for the remainder of this presentation. So basically the why would I do this? So it actually started with that I don't that you that I think that you can't expect everybody to know Git that wants to make changes to successful GitOps projects. And why am I saying it like that? What I saw at my previous job is that a lot of intent, for example, customer environments, tenants, were actually all provided in Git. And if somebody then wanted to add a new customer, then they just had to create a pull request. And can you expect that from a salesperson? Well, I actually did, and I learned then Git, but it wasn't really pleasant always. So I just wanted to have an easier way to enter the intent or slash configuration of GitOps. So it's not really about all the details that's in your cluster. It's really about the high level intent that you can see in a lot of GitOps operations. So it's also a very nice thing that you get quicker feedback if you put it behind an API. So if you create a pull request and you make a mistake in your YAML, then somewhere down the line something will break. But the sooner the better. So what is the basic idea? The basic idea is that you just can change things in your small intent cluster, and that you then get that you then have an operator that basically converts that change log back into Git commits, so to say. So as I said, it's really for simple situations only. So really for capturing intent. So what is intent? Basically everything you can put in plain Kubernetes resource manifests. It's really hard already to use with customize, so very limited. Um, and I think reversing helm is actually quite impossible. And I also think that I don't need to explain that to you guys. So, and number three is very important actually. This is not replacing GitOps or something like that. I actually want to enrich it. So basically, I just want to give people an easy way to edit their Git folder or their GitOps folder in Git. And normal GitOps tools are used uh, to to basically stream the intent into the production clusters. So I've I came up with a term, I call it an intent cluster. Basically, it can be a very lightweight thing that doesn't need to run workloads even. And it's basically just for editing your things and making it accessible to the outside world even if you want to. So it's really lightweight. And Flux and Argo CD can just be used or should be used for deploying it because I don't intend to have to do that myself. I mean, there are good tools for doing that. So what is my state at this moment? I have Kauta.that, as I said, and Config Builder. It's basically just a one-person business. I do training, open source development, and then reverse GitOps is the concept, as I just told, and then the actual prototype is the GitOps reverser. It's fully open source. So my screen is being shared at this moment, so you can actually see it here. So basically, I can share the link if you like. Basically, this is the overview of it. So people change something here on the left. They do that in that intent cluster that I just told. GitOps reverser is picking up the changes. It's looking at the audit stream from the Kubernetes API, and it's then creating that into commits. And then, well, it's dotted here, but that's where normal GitOps tools take over and just deploy changes into their normal cluster. I did presented this at PlatformCon beginning this year, and I also presented it at Cozy Summit. So if you want to have more details or more examples on how it's really working in practice, then it might be worthwhile to look at that. But basically, that's it. So the prototype listens to the Kube API audit stream. It's a bit of a pain to set up correctly, not always possible for everybody, but it's the only way to really get the usernames configured well. GitOps Reverser itself can be configured with CRDs. So you basically can pick which types you want to follow inside intent cluster or inside a cluster. You do that with a watch rule / cluster watch rule. You can pick which folder you want it to be reconciled into, the things that are found or changed. So that is a Git target, and you can have the configuration of which repo you actually want to push it to, and that's the Git provider. So basically, these three things are together responsible for doing that. And I promised Kingdom that I would have 3 slides. I already have more than this. So it's kind of the question now, is there already questions or things? I mean, I also wanted to have an open conversation on it and not a very long presentation.
I
Yes,
think
I'm curious.
the really interesting idea here to me is in the past, I've used like just a bunch of config maps and stuff, actually as like and then like a cron job as a very, very simple like HA consistent, backend. Like the infrastructure is already there, right? I think I had a use case when I was doing DevRel for VMware where I wanted to distribute like some redemption codes for swag. This was like during COVID.
Great.
And when somebody did a lab like on Kubernetes, then they would end up with like a namespace like in some central cluster. And there was this like cron job controller thing that would basically label like a list of pre-generated like um redemption codes. And each one was a config map. And then when somebody would hit a certain like win condition, then the thing would like basically label the thing as consumed and then copy it into their namespace.
Oh, yeah.
And what I learned from that was that you can basically use Kubernetes as like a very, very simple database um that you can build an app on, right? Like it was
Yeah.
a shell script in a cron job with kubectl, and the storage was config maps. And for me, managing the thing that was like I was like using an application. What Going back to your presentation, the reason I'm bringing this up is you had this use case of sales adding like a customer,
Yeah,
to
tenant. Yeah.
some infrastructure environment or something. W- Why does why does Kubernetes work as the like i- the incoming point for that versus Git versus some other thing?
Now, well, basically, Git remains the source of truth. That is very important in this concept, at least. And in that concept, it was also very important. So I really believe in having these things in Git because then you have your history well at first. And basically, these customers it was about the environment of these customers. So they came in as a new customer, and we just basically everybody had its own tenant, and we basically had a GitOps setup where we just configured, hey, this is your domain name, this is the modules that you have enabled, this is the GUI version that you want to have, and basically this is your first user where you can log in. That's basically it was just a SaaS provider that
Yeah, there's a custom resource for that, and somebody is
exactly
expected to
basically
make that in a Kubernetes cluster instead of
yeah.
in Git, right? So the question is like, why, like, how did we end up where that was the more usable thing?
Well, it was basically we didn't have that many customers that it needed to be fully automated. So basically every customer that was added was just we were happy to do that, and we were also happy to just create a pull request for it. And it was just we worked with GitOps already, and then I just didn't want to change anything in the cluster without putting it in Git, basically the default.
Yeah,
So
but
I
then
didn't
like
want to create tenants.
the
I
API
have
is like go log into the Kubernetes cluster and then make a resource.
yeah. Well, that's the back then I didn't have this. Yeah, so and I really so now indeed you can go into that intent API that I was telling about. But back then it was just a Git repo with a GitOps setup, and it was Argo CD in this case, looking at that Git folder and just reconciling it back into the production clusters. Just a very normal, regular GitOps setup, I would say. You are looking like it's a very hard story.
Uh, I think it's just like it seems like you're answering a different question than what I'm asking, which is I'm just asking, it's like the premise of this of using GitOps Reverser is that
Mhm.
the intent can come from the cluster. So that would
Exactly.
imply that
Yeah,
you would want the intent to come from the cluster. So my
exactly.
question is, what are the use cases where the cluster is the more usable thing to change? Where like logging into the thing, it's like I could see state coming maybe from some other tool, right? Like some ClickOps tool,
Mhm.
where people are changing things and then it has an imperative effect in the cluster. Um, and then you want to slurp that up, into a GitOps repo to be able to replay it later or audit it or communicate about it. Um,
or
do
put
you,
it
do you
into
see
a
my question?
pipeline.
Yeah, I see your point. Let me So I have this. I have basically. I had this thing. I first wanted to see how long we wanted to talk about this. So there's a few use cases that you could have, and indeed one of them is that you can basically edit the GitOps folder when you are working from a GUI. And
Hmm.
actually, I'm not sure if you are all very familiar with Cozy Stack, for example. Cozy Stack also has this vision that they say, okay, every change should just go through the Kubernetes API directly. Um, But then they have the problem that if you make changes in their GUI and you create new
Hmm.
databases or new queues or whatever, then you don't have a proper audit log basically of what's happening.
Hmm.
So I did a presentation there where I actually showed that you can install GitOps Converter in a Cozy Stack cluster, and then at the moment that you click in the GUI create a database, at that exact moment you get a commit um, yeah, in the Git repository that you hooked up to it, basically. And then you have also the person included because the Kubernetes API is indeed a very nice uh, service to work against because you can also just get the identity of the person that is actually doing the thing. And actually,
Yeah.
GitOps Converter also supports keeping that halter in the whole chain of creating these commits. So that's actually there's also I think that's the most powerful combination. So it's kind of you're streaming these audit logs of your cluster
Mhm.
activity into Git, and yeah, whatever that is changing, it could be a GUI, it could also be an agent that is working on it. It could also be your intern that is learning with kubectl on a production cluster, and that you see, hey, why are you
Mhm.
making these commits at 4 o'clock in the night? And don't
Is
say
there a some sort of like time window based batching that GitOps Reverser can do
yes, I have created that. Yeah. So you can indeed set up a window of whatever amount of
in
seconds you
like the
want.
watch rule, I guess?
Yeah, I've actually
For the demo,
done
you
that.
made it a few seconds, right? And that was enough to debounce from
Yeah,
having multiple successive changes in the API resulting in
Mhm.
multiple commits. But you could imagine you might set it for like 15 minutes if you just wanted to batch changes and
yeah,
weren't so concerned about getting them right away.
But
exactly.
then what happens here with how does this are you using this with Flux right now, Simon?
Yes, I have been doing some experiments with that, and that's actually quite cool because
So do you have Flux reapplying the changes as well? Or like how does that
Yeah, and that was the question I wanted to ask the most. Like, do you how do the two tools do not fight? Like, okay, you sent this back to Git, but then Flux now has to apply that as well. And when does, let's say, config butler stops touching the resource because it's now reconciled by Git by Flux?
yeah, um,
Oh, maybe it should just ignore Flux changes, I guess.
yeah, basically that's it. It's kind of I don't know if you guys by accident know kubectl neat. I mean, it was a plugin for kubectl where you could strip away all the details that are not relevant if you look at intent or spec or whatever you want to call it. And basically that's what I do as well. So if I get an audit event in, I just strip all the nonsense from my perspective, and then I compare it to what is in Git. If there's no difference, then I do nothing, and if there is a difference, then I commit it. Basically, that's how it works. So, and yes, if you are not careful, you can also induce loops, because if I change something and I use steps and you guys use spaces, then that's the kind of funny things that can happen. But I've made it quite ignorant to these kind of things. So it's really parsing the YAML, comparing it, and if it's not different from the YAML perspective. So also the ordering of keys is also not important, for example. But if you implement it in a sloppy way, then it will be, and then you have the risk to make extra changes, and you don't want to do that.
Does it only fire on an edge, like when something changes, or are the watch rules also like when it's first instantiated, like collecting a list of things to
Yeah,
export?
I can show you an example. So during the demo for Cozy Stack, I actually have been editing a little bit. I have a fixed folder structure at this very moment. I'm working on creating that more flexible, but at this moment, you can actually point to a folder demo in this example, and you basically get a folder per type. So if you just look at the helm releases, for example, then you will see that I believe these are the names. Then you get a dashboard.yaml, and that's basically the YAML that has been committed by config butler. So you can actually see it has been committed by the config butler bot, and it has been committed.
And are you using Go Git?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
So, um, my question that that didn't really get to my question. The
Yeah.
repo
Sorry.
itself makes sense, but
Can you
yeah,
can you
like
repeat it?
the question is,
Yeah.
does it only fire on a change to something, or when you set up the watch rules, if there's already things there that it's watching, would it collect all of the resources and export them at the start, like when you initialize the watch?
Yeah. That's so the first commit. You can also see that if you go back here. And you can also see that there's a bug in this version that is running here because it's here reconciling. I actually have a reconcile phase. And in this case, all the sub-secrets are again reconciled just with a new version of it. It does that every time that I restart my server. As I said, that's a bug. But basically, at the moment that you change something in the watch rules, it will reconcile, and it will basically, the cluster is the source of truth. So at the moment that it sees 5 Helm releases, for example, and there's still 10 Helm releases defined in Git, then I will remove the 5 that are not there.
Yes.
Basically making it, reconciling it basically, yeah.
So if there's nothing in Git, and you create a watch rule, and before you created the watch rule, there were 5 Helm releases, then it will collect everything and initialize those
Yeah.
resources into
Then you will have
Git,
5 resources.
even though there is not a change coming in.
Yes, and that's also,
Okay.
you can actually see that here nicely, that, for example, this reconcile is also only done by config butler. Normally, if changes are responsible for it, perhaps I can even, I don't know how many commits I have here actually.
What happens, for example, in drift caused by someone through kubectl, like the kind of drift that you would want Flux to correct? Like I add a feud via kubectl, and that's the kind of thing my platform team doesn't want me to do, and that's why they have Flux in place to undo what I did. If there's enough time between I add the field through kubectl and Flux reconciles with the desired state, could in the middle uh, Git observer come in and commit to Git what I didn't want to be in Git?
If you configure it like that, yes. And that's, I would advise against doing that. I mean, it depends on the use case. I mean, in a production cluster, I think you would never run, as I said, it really depends. I think in this example, you would not run something that immediately pushes it to main. I mean, that's probably not.
Right, like you would normally not be using this in prod, right? Like it's for experimentation,
Well, I
development.
mean, there can
Let's also be
definitely be
honest. I mean,
use
this thing
cases.
is still a prototype. I'm not claiming that you should be pushing this to production. That's also in the
I think
README on the front page.
the
But
feedback just from your very short presentation, of course, there's like a lot of nuance because there's really the devil's in the details with like the API machinery, how you're diffing things, what you're listening to versus ignoring. There's field managers, which is, like, does config butler own this or not? And those are all questions that could be asked that, with it being a kind of early or even considered a prototype, like might not be dealt with. Um, I would say guidance for how to use this with Flux would be helpful to Flux users if you want Flux users to use it. And one of the things would be like how it deals with conflict resolution, or how it's supposed to compose. Because definitely you could configure this and Flux at the same time to be fighting for ownership uh, over the desired state. And you don't want systems fighting because then you'll end up with, non-deterministic flapping, right? Like if somebody makes an edit in kubectl and Flux notices before config butler, then Flux will undo the edit and then config butler won't see it. Um, and so you don't want things configured that way. You'll want Flux to
cooperate, yeah.
you'll want Flux to not, like do drift correction in any pipelines where this is the intended, workflow where stuff is being exported back to Git, based off of
Or the other
changes.
way around, right?
Yeah. And then for the other way around, you would say you don't want to configure watch rules for things where Flux drift correction is expected. Um, Either of those two cases are gonna, you know, you want one thing or the other. You probably don't want both configured at the same time.
Yeah, well, we can have. If I don't know if there's time to answer your question. or to give a
It's not
response?
a question, it's feedback. Yeah. The
Okay,
feedback
but
is that's what should be done. If you want Flux users to be able to configure these things.
yeah, you're really point one. Thank you for the feedback.
Yeah.
And you're right. I should be having more installation guidance and that kind of stuff. But from the perspective of, I actually do support bidirectional GitOps in a very interesting way, because if you're fast enough, you could do both. So let's say that you have a Helm release, for example, that I'm managing from reverse GitOps with an API, then I can immediately do a commit in that GitOps folder where it's defined. If somebody would be changing it there, Flux would also, if there's a webhook configured, immediately apply it back to the API. I would just pick it up as, hey, Flux made a change, and I go back to try to apply it, and I see, hey, it's already applied, so I ignore it. Basically, that's how it works. And then the interesting thing is that you can use both the kubenetes API to make your edits in a GUI if you wanted to, but you could also use the the normal Git procedures as we are all used to. As developers, we like that more, I guess. But it's so, and there's a lot of details here. I do have some end-to-end tests already to prove that it can be done, and it's especially interesting. You don't want Flux to reconcile at the moment that somebody makes a change in the API. That's kind of the real nitty-gritty millisecond situation that I cannot yet answer to. But that's the only thing that I really don't know how to. I might need to stop the. But perhaps we're now too detailed. That's also the.
Yeah, could almost maybe make it dance where config butler would even maybe control the suspend field of the thing that it's watching.
Yeah, could do that as well.
Like you could say, I'm watching this thing, trace it up to the customization that manages it, suspend the customization. When a change comes in, then commit to the repo and then unsuspend it. And let Flux, apply. And then when it sees the two-phase commit come in, then it goes and I'm not sure. Like it's definitely like you don't all of us know Flux very well here. We know that if you set this up bidirectionally and you have something watching, more than likely it will work most of the time, to have both things trying to own it. Um, but that edge case is the kind of thing that matters when, you're running at thousands of clusters scale.
If there's someone who knows about field ownership here, is DeepT.
Yeah, DeepD is shipping a new feature in Flux 9 for managed field ignore rules, which is something that
Oh
you might
wow.
want to look at. Have you seen that, or did King didn't tell you about it?
No, he didn't. But it's more that I know that there's a lot of detailed work in these situations. I've not worked on field ownership yet, so that's I know that it's on my list, but it's one of these hard topics. I know that.
Yeah, so DeepD is shipping a field in customized controller. It's on the customization API. It's called
Okay.
managed fields ignore rules. And you can basically say to Flux, hey, when other random and external imperative changes happen to this subsection of this Kubernetes resource, then Flux won't fight over those fields, but it will maintain control of the other fields. And
Interesting.
if the object doesn't exist in the cluster yet, if the resource doesn't exist, then it will apply the resource as Flux sees fit. So basically, it's a way for you to initialize something into the cluster and then for Flux to stop caring after,
Yeah.
uh, but then maintain ownership over other parts of the same exact resource. Um, is really useful for like vertical pod autoscaler, Kyverno policies that mutate, sidecar injection things.
Or even just for horizontal as well, because people often want, hey, I want two pods. in the beginning. If
in the
it's gonna
beginning,
go
yeah.
up or not, yeah. If it's gonna go up or down after, okay. But in the beginning, I want two.
And
It's
you
usually
want it to be able to scale lower than two. Or,
yeah,
maybe start with 20, scale up and down to 10 or 30. You can't actually do that with Flux right now.
yeah.
You'd have to start it at 10 and then let the HPA scale it up or something. But
We'll certainly take a look at that new feature. That's nice.
I have one last question that I'm very curious about. Um, so you said you use audit webhooks is like a specific feature of the Kubernetes API. Like why not watches? I guess there's probably a very good reason, but can you talk a bit about that? I'm very curious about that feature.
Yeah, I've actually considered multiple things to get this thing going, and I needed to just shoot them down one by one. So watchers don't have authorship, and I think authorship is very important in something like this. So a watch only gives back what is changing and not who has changed it.
What?
So the fact that I made change, that I can track back that, for example, here that Sunit did it, and that config butler bot has actually committed it, that is important in my opinion. And if you use watches, you won't be able to know that I did it, that Simon did it, but you can only say, hey, config butler has been reconciling it. If you don't find it important to have authorship, then you could use watches as well. That is very true.
yeah, audit is an
Hmm.
interesting way to get that information. Um, Admission is another place where you can get that.
I've also done that in the start. And the annoying thing of admission is that you cannot be sure in the edge cases, because I also have been working on a lot of edge cases and tests and all that kind of stuff. And the annoying thing of admission is that you get that before it's actually stored in uh,
Yeah, it
in
could be
the
confusing.
database. You can never be sure that it really happened like that. And and then you can compare it again and you could accept it. That's true.
Can you get confused by dry runs in admission? Like, do you receive?
Yeah, I think so. I've actually not tried that, but I guess that would also be a problem. Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, in the end, I just said, okay, if you really want this to be trustworthy, if I really want to claim that this is an audit log that you can trust, then I just need to hook in to the audit mechanism of,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
that's
you need to
at
have
least what
audit
I found.
on a cluster for this to function, which a lot of people do.
What's the third part of the sentence that you said? Sorry, I missed it.
Enabling audit on a cluster is a requirement for
Yeah,
this. Yeah.
exactly.
It's like not everyone has it, but a lot of people do.
And I see
Hmm.
that Dipti actually asked a question uh,
Oh,
in the chat. In terms of auth, what auth does config butler support to push to Git? Security considerations,
I
pass.
had the same question. That's a very good question.
Yeah, at this moment I have SSH and that's that's a long time ago that I implemented it. I also have HTTP support, but I don't know if it's passwordless that I have actually, to be honest.
We are talking about workload identity. That's what
No, that I certainly don't have. And I know the
favorite
feature is
feature.
brilliant, but I
I
don't
mean, I
have that.
think in general, I think people are trying to, as a security consideration, we don't want to store any of these keys and paths, etc., in our cluster, right? So just around that would be a big improvement if we move to passwordless auth so that there's broader adoption.
Yeah.
Things like GitHub support that
You
workload.
could do GitHub app authentication at the bare minimum for like the Git or GitHub based repositories. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's not passwordless because you still have to start a GitHub app private
App,
key in the
yeah.
cluster. But we in Flux support workload identity for all the cloud providers. Like
Cloud providers.
yeah, like for Azure DevOps is the first one. Then we are now in Flux 2.9 introducing workload identity for AWS code
AW.
commit, and we don't support Google. But I don't know why. I guess it's a use case nobody asked for so far. If I don't even know the Google Git service, if there's one. I think they shut it down.
I think they
I don't
did
know.
shut it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, there used
But
to be.
if there was one and people wanted, we
Oh,
bring
God, so
one.
um, yeah, I think now that now that GitHub is an AI slop factory, we don't really have a lot of confidence that they're gonna give us all of these machine identity APIs.
Yeah.
One can cross their fingers. Um, what about GitLab, Matthias? Everyone has GitLab. New workload ID to
No,
GitLab?
it like GitHub, you have workload identity when you run inside GitHub or GitLab in the runners, right? Like you have OIDC to talk to other systems. But the
Yeah,
other way around, which is what Flux needs, no.
yeah.
Yeah, but the
Well, it's
interesting thing is that I
anything
need it the
goes.
wrong way around again. This is always hard.
What? Sorry?
Well, yeah, well, there's actually two things now that is very interesting here because I want to make a SaaS product as well out of this. So it's a very good question and very good to think about these parts. So thanks for this question. And of course, this thing we're looking at now is just an open source GitOps reverser, basically that you run in your own, yeah,
Well,
wherever you.
did you hear about the GitOps toolkit? github.com/fluxcd/package. You have these workload identity features there if you want. You can import it. It's Apache
Sorry,
too. It's in
what are you talking? What can you say it again?
github.com/fluxcd/pkg.
Auth
Like that?
subfolder.
Yes. Click auth there.
Off?
Auth. The fifth folder there.
Oh,
Auth.
check,
Yeah.
check. I'm not a native
Yeah.
speaker.
If you want, you can use that. Like we have Azure
Nice,
DevOps and AWS Code Commit there. Workload identity. You can use it.
perfect. That's a good tip. I will review this.
It's
Nice.
most powerful workload identity library in the whole ecosystem.
I have
Exciting,
actually
yeah.
for designing my CRDs and exactly for designing a CRD for connecting to Git repos, I actually did a close look at what you guys did. So I might even be able to hook it up to Git repositories of Flux at some point. I've not supported that yet, but it's kind of interesting. I mean, there's a lot of similarity in what we do, except for the direction, of course. It's
Just be careful because this library is going to have a lot of breaking changes over time.
okay.
It's uh, I'm only going to make it GA maybe in 2 years,
Oh, wow, that's really
but
fun.
but you can use it. Like it's not like whenever it breaks, just ping me. I can help you.
Nice.
Uh, yeah. Um, cool. Do we want to?
Yeah.
One last question. Is that the feature? I sent the link in the chat. I want to take a look. Can you please confirm?
Oh, then I need to open it on this browser. Let's not open that one. So yes, it's this one. To be this one to be
Well, cool,
precise, the
cool.
webhook backend. And it's a really
All
nice
right,
feature. You can really configure where it needs to be pushed to, and also with yeah, that you can the size of the batch and all these kinds of things. So it's really yeah,
cool,
exactly that.
nice.
Yeah,
Thanks very much. I guess next
Yeah.
topic.
Yep.
yeah. Thank you very much, guys.
So,
Pleasure.
this is the summer blog series. We've got a lot of stuff shipping in the project. Matthias and I wrote up this thing for some of the stuff that we're wanting to make sure that the community knows about. We need to do our traditional Flux 2.9 release blog post. Flux is turning 10 years old on July 7. So we want to definitely get some hype around that. I'm so excited. It's just such a huge monument to all of the love that people put into the project. Um, we want to do a post about Flux Mirror, which is our new supply chain diode plugin. Use the new plugin system, but it's available as a standalone binary just fine. And then we've got another plugin as well, Flux Schema. So you can import your HTTP Helm charts, your OCI charts, your OCI images, your desired state with Flux Mirror from wherever, God knows where you get it. Apply, whatever um, kind of policies you want, validate them, verify signatures, and then do that all declaratively to pull it into your own OCI repos. And then Flux schema preventing stuff from being invalid, being pushed to other places. Like say you want to validate your repo in CI before you have Flux actually operate on that commit inside of main, or you want to run, a check on the CRDs when you are on your custom resources, offline before you ever connect to the cluster, that kind of stuff. Uh, we want to do a little bit of a post about some of the open bow workload identity integrations and end-to-end test coverage stuff that we've done, just to make sure that people know that they can use open bow with Flux. And we've got a open bow maintainer who wants to help with that post. And then also there's some new receiver workflows. Again, Mateus is doing all of this work in the authentication space. And we've got some new OIDC workload identity stuff for receivers. So you can now make it passwordless, secretless workflow for getting reactive changes into your clusters. And the concepts for all of these 6 posts are kind of roughly laid out, so that we can get working on them. And yeah, you know, this is our
I was thinking one that we could add, if Deeply wants,
Mhm.
is the field ignore rules. I think that one deserves a post. And you don't have a post yet, do you, Deeply? Would be nice to have a post from you.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, can work on that.
What do you think? Sorry for
Yeah.
volunteering you.
No, no. Yeah, we can
So
do one
yeah,
on the field manage. Yeah.
and we have time, like as you see, this whole schedule is like beginning on the end of the month only. So for this one, and we do need time between the posts, so they make their way through the internet and people see it and get things into
Yeah,
their
this is a pretty
heads.
ambitious and
Yeah.
hot set of posts as far as scheduling goes, once a week for 6 weeks.
Yeah,
Is
so if you want, we can do your post starting on August 10, let's say, but of course it can also be much later, whatever
Yeah.
schedule you have. Or
Yeah. No, I think, yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that the timeline works. There's enough time to like plan and execute it for sure. Yeah.
maybe
Thanks.
it gives us a chance to respond to any bugs. Too.
yes.
True.
Yeah,
We'll know once the 2.9 release goes.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's fine for us to, talk about stuff that's brand new and like you could even blog about the managed ignore rules, right now. Like even when it's not released yet, that's fine too. So we
Yeah,
might put
yeah.
whatever we
Totally,
want,
totally true, totally true.
but um, yeah.
So is
So
there like a
anyway,
process in between, like, is it just the PR and then a website
yeah,
release, or okay, there's not
yeah,
like a
just
long process
website
or anything for
PR,
it? Yeah.
and
Yeah,
then we just put the backport label on, and then
exactly. Yeah,
it just publishes to the existing
yeah.
doc
Cool.
site
Sounds good.
or the
Yeah.
Yeah,
blog
it backports to the branch of the current release.
of the current
Release.
release. Yeah.
So two merges and that's it.
Okay. Sounds good. I love how easy Flux is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I guess I'll just put here, uh, answering question from the Flux Dev call. Process for posting is we have a PR here, and we labeled it with the backport label of the current active release, so that blogs are immediately visible. Yeah, that's more.
And that's the case for any change in the website.
Yeah.
Or
Most
just
website
blog.
changes, unless you're trying to stage it or
Yeah.
something. Um, cool. Anything we want to talk about for 2.9 release? It's happening at the end of the month. Um, I guess my topic would be that I'm really trying to get the private SIG store stack polished up. I fixed some bugs in there for TLS stuff, but there's a bunch of features that would not be accessible if we don't implement some sort of heuristic parsing of the trust bundle. So that's basically what I've been heads down on for 2 weeks, trying to deeply understand and work through the test cases with real infrastructure. Um, gonna be
Uh,
pushing some code to the SigStar testing branch that I have an open PR for soon to show some of the things I've been working on.
cool. So maybe we can give the timelines of what we plan to do for the release.
Yeah,
So we have it all on the calendar. Basically, next week is the week for releasing controllers. So starting 15, right? Uh,
yeah,
yeah. Then the week after that, we have Stefan Busy in London. And when he comes back, that's exactly when we release the whole thing on
mm,
Monday, Tuesday, which are June 29 and 30.
okay.
Yeah.
That's sort of the release timeline.
And if you want to open the roadmap and skim through it quickly for people to see, maybe it's a good idea.
This is the 2.9 roadmap. Hold up 1 second. Here we go.
2.8.
Yeah, why is this?
It's just further below.
Here it is.
You know. Maybe highlight the breaking changes first of all. So Helm breaking change is related to Helm 4. So we had in Helm 4 they added support for the post renderers to touch the hooks, right? We talked about this a lot in the Flux Dev meetings when the bug was happening and everything. So what we decided to do is that we fixed the bug uh, in 2.8 to be exactly the same behavior as before Helm 4. But this behavior needs a field which we are introducing in 2.9, and this field will default to what Helm 4 defaults, which is combined as it's written there. So if you want the behavior prior to Helm 4, you need to set this field to no hooks. Uh, and why are we doing this breaking change after fixing the bug in 2.8? It's because we need to keep aligned with the Helm defaults. And the Helm 3 defaults feature gate is wired into this field. So before in 2.8, the Helm 3 defaults feature gate was only server-side apply and the health check strategy to use the built-in one instead of case status. The Helm legacy strategy instead of case status. Now it's those two things plus this field. So
Yeah,
if you change the Helm 3 defaults to on, starting with Flux 2.9, then you get back no hooks in the
by
post
default.
renderers. Yeah, by default.
Basically, it's a use Helm 3 defaults bug fix,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
it's breaking
It's
because
breaking because Helm broke, right? Like whenever Helm
it's
this we
it's not
decided
really
this,
it's not really a breaking change, but you know, it's
it
people should know
it,
that.
it it's changing the behavior from no hooks to combined, right? Like It's
For only one release.
yes. I mean,
It is a
the
bug.
thing is, whenever Helm does a breaking change, we will have to follow. That's it. Like this is our commitment to to like we will do all the breaking changes that Helm does, and we will always have these use Helm X defaults, right? Like
Yeah.
if in Helm 5 they do more breaking changes, we will also have the Helm 4 feature gate, Helm 4 default feature gate, if you want to go back and
Yeah,
so on.
we already have the premise set where it's like if you wanted Helm 3 behavior, you need to use the feature gate by
Yeah,
default. Otherwise,
exactly.
the API should now be Helm 4.
Yeah,
But then what makes this feel like it broke is that we implemented it such that the default was a Helm 3 default in for a small period of time in the 2.8 patch series, and now in 2.9 it's fixed.
yeah.
So,
And the
uh,
other breaking change is about a CVE that someone found in the Google receiver where the validation of the Google ID token was incomplete, like it was just not looking at the right things, which are the email and audience claims. And starting with Flux 2.9, uh, the those fields will be required and yeah, there's nothing you can do. Like it's security, right? Like that there's a token that you should be validating. And Flux was not. So yeah. CVEs are the things that usually warrant these kinds of breaking changes.
okay.
Breaking wise, that it's only those two. So yeah, bunch of customized features. We have the plugin system, which Flux Scheme and Flux Mirror are the two official plugins for in the Flux CLI. We also will have the Flux Operator CLI as a plugin in the this plugin system as well. So we have three plugins from the beginning. Also, we have SSH verification for Git, which is just not ticked there, but it's already done. We have, as
Hmm.
I said, code commit workload identity. We have SigStore, trusted root as well, and a bunch of features that I cannot probably say in 3 minutes.
Yeah. This is a packed release. There's so much stuff in here, and they're big features too. So, um,
Yeah,
that's why we also have to get out and tell people about it.
yeah, but yeah.
Really impressive, especially coming from my own prototype one-person show. Huh?
Cool. I mean, yeah, and all the things we already highlighted as blog posts are in the release as well.
Okay. I think I'm gonna stop sharing. I was totally gonna start closing up the meeting, and then I started choking on my own spit while I was talking about all of the features that we are releasing. So, um, yeah, great meeting. Thank you for your presentation, Simon. Um, we've got a lot of stuff to do in the next few weeks, and I guess let's close the meeting, close the recording, and we'll see you all again
Thank you very much.
online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice to see you all. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.